All right. So,
Oh, good. What's the question?
uh, slideshow, start. All right. So, I want to welcome everyone here to Environmental Fridays, Season 6, Episode 1. And we are already having lots of fun. We are already having lots of fun. So this is going to be a very exciting episode. And I'm very grateful for Kimberly, for Elizabeth, for Regina, for like giving us all of this energy, even though some of them are like, what, 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock, early. Yeah, so thanks to you and thanks to all who are on here with us today. Just wanted to give you a preview of what's coming up for our January episodes. So today we'll look at the environment in Native American themed movies, and you'll hear a lot more about that. Next week, we will have Seth Borenstein, and he is a journalist with Associated Press. And so he will give us, he's a science writer with them, and he will give us some information about declining honeybee populations. And then on the 26th, we will go to Trinidad in the Caribbean. And our speaker will talk to us then about environmental innovation and adaptation in the Caribbean. So if you want to find out some more about these topics and more, you could use the QR code or the link at the bottom. So for today, I've kind of talked this over with my team. Um, and some of the questions, concepts, and ideas that we may discuss today deals with how is nature, environment, geography, and place viewed by Native American peoples and cultures? How is it portrayed in the Native American themed movies? What are some movies that do a reasonable or accurate job of portraying Native American views on nature and environment? And then if Kimberly and Elizabeth would like to tell us about their roles in some movies that gave a holistic representation. And what do we think should happen in the future in terms of how Native Americans and the environment should be portrayed? We do have just about an hour, so it's very feasible that we do not cover everything, but I'm pretty sure whatever we cover, it will be very engaging. So this is my team for today, the Talking Circle. This is something I just learned from Regina. Regina basically said, hey, Desmond, I have an idea. Let's do it this way. And one thing I've learned from my years on this planet is to listen. Listen, so talking circle it is. And so Regina, it's yours. Do you want me to leave this up or take it down for now? What do you want?
Oh, yes, thank you, Desmond. I think we could leave it up for now, actually,
For
because I
now?
will
Okay.
be introducing my friends.
All right, sounds good.
So good morning, everyone. Shio, welcome. We're so grateful to be here. And it is an incredible honor for me to be able to stand aside and zoom in alongside Kimberly and Liz and Desmond and share with everyone in a talking circle today and talk about the environment in Native themed movies. So before we even move forward, I want to ask if there's any elder in the room or in the Zoom who would be open to or willing to offer a prayer for us. Anyone? I'll wait a minute here and you can mute and just chime in if so. Okay, I will offer a prayer for us. Thank you. And if you're comfortable closing your eyes, I invite you to as well. So Father, Unek Unachi, Creator, One, Spirit above, we just ask that you open our minds and hearts to share today and to hear what needs to be shared and heard. And we ask that you bless this time together. We thank you for this time together. We thank you for all of the good work that's happening in the film industry and in the arts with Indigenous peoples in good ways. And we ask that this conversation today inspire more of that within us and around us. And we move into this conversation and with joy and with your love and light, that it may fill us to give and receive freely. And thank you again. Amen. Wado.
Amen.
I'm crying. I was laughing so hard before we started. I have tears. So I have the distinct pleasure to get to introduce everyone to Kimberly Guerrero and Elizabeth Francis, who so graciously joined us this morning for our talking circle. Kimberly is, as a contemporary Indigenous storyteller, Kimberly enjoys a career in film, television, and theater, which is very expansive, quite a breadth, and reminds me of a very Indigenous approach to the arts of being very interdisciplinary in our understandings of how things work and how we do things. Her credits include Reservation Dogs, the English Rutherford Falls, Spirit Rangers, which is another favorite of mine, and an iconic turn as Jerry's native girlfriend on Seinfeld. The list goes on and on and on of all the TV shows and films and theater productions that she's been a part of. But Kimberly really had the honor of playing legendary, my hero, one of my great heroes, speaking of heroes, Cherokee Chief Wilma Mankiller. She played her more than once, twice on film, once in the Cherokee Word for Water and again in the Glorious. And she originated the role of Jonna in the Tony Award-winning play August, Osage County. Kimberly has worked exclusively across Native America, using filmmaking as a tool to empower youth and promote wellness in tribal communities. And she is the current artistic director at UC University, California, Riverside, where she serves as an associate professor, equipping a new generation of storytellers. We welcome you, Kimberly, and we're super grateful that your friend Liz has joined us as well, and I get to introduce Elizabeth Francis as well. She is acclaimed for her grace-arid charisma, both on screen and off, actress, and she is best known for her countless on-camera roles, such as troubled girlfriend Angela Maryboy in Drunktown's Finest, produced by Robert Redford, which premiered at Sundance Film Festival. Rockstar Bad Penny in the Emmy-nominated series Her Story, NBC's Heartbeat, tough but lovable MMA fighter Lily Rowan on Netflix's Love, from producer Judd Apatow. I may be pronouncing that wrong. I apologize if I did. And currently her role as the young and headstrong prairie flower on AMC's hit series The Sun, starring Pierce Brosnan. Liz was born on a military base in Okinawa, Japan, the daughter of a Marine Corps father and strong statue of a mother. She was taught at an early age the value of hard work and discipline. Francis began to study the arts from youth and developed a strong passion for theater and performance. Her family eventually settled in San Diego, California. my hometown. After receiving her degree from Cal Arts, immediately she began her professional career, both regionally and in LA, Los Angeles, working with such notable theaters as Center Theater Group, La Jolla Playhouse, Los Angeles Theater Center, Shakespeare Santa Cruz, Native Voices, and the Kirk Douglas Theater. She is not only a working actor, she is working on a powerful new shoot about our relationship to the ocean. Thank you both for joining us. We are so excited to talk with you. We are, as Desmond said, we are approaching this talk today in more of an informal way, and we invite you all to participate and ask questions, share ideas, thoughts, concerns, reflections as we move through our conversation. So we really just hope that this is open dialogue. We thank you all for being here, for being engaged, for participating with us. For those of you on the West Coast, we hope you have your coffee in hand, and special thanks for joining us so early at 6:30 in the morning, which is nothing to my dad, who gets up at 4. So without further ado, we are going to move into, I'm actually, before we move into the questions and the talking circle piece, I will pass it off to Kimberly to say hello and good morning and offer a land acknowledgement for us. Thank you.
Hello, relatives. Good morning. It's so good to be together in this talking circle so early in the morning. What a wonderful way to start off the new year, start off a new day, start off a Martin Luther King weekend when we're reflecting on liberty and freedom for all people, and for our relationship with the planet and the environment as well. So we were talking a bit at the beginning of this about land acknowledgements. Some of you may be familiar with them, some of you may not, but it's become a practice within academia and some in entertainment circles to get started just understanding that, everything, we're all sitting right. And that's kind of like the cool part of it, right? Like we're coming from all over the globe right now, but we're all sharing the same earth beneath us. And that's pretty powerful. And sometimes it just takes a moment to just stop and meditate and have a moment with that and acknowledge that. So I was asked, we do this throughout University of California, Riverside. And we're one of the few, because we were co-founded by Native American scholars. And within that, we're on Cahuilla land, and we were actually founded by a Cahuilla scholar and his wife, who was a Cherokee scholar back in the 50s. I'm just going to just model for you all the land acknowledgement that we've created, the Native faculty at UCR. And it's kind of happens before any of our academic talks or our music shows or our theater shows, whatever. So this is the land acknowledgement, and I'll do it in terms of our talking circle today, where I'm coming from. In the spirit of Rupert and Jeanette Costo's founding relationship to our campus, we would like to respectfully acknowledge and recognize our responsibility to the original and current caretakers of this land, water, and air, the Cahuilla, Tongva, the Seño, and Serrano peoples, and all of their ancestors and descendants, past, present, and future. We are grateful to have the opportunity to live, work, and create on these beautiful homelands. And then I've also dropped a link at the top of the chat, if you can open up your chat. And it's at the very tip top. It says native-land.ca. And if you want to click on that now or later, that'll give you an idea. You can find yourself. You can actually type in your address, whether you're traveling or you're at home or you're at your office. It'll give you a sense of the land that you're on, the history that's they're living around you. And while it's not an exact science, it can give you a sense, if you haven't done that already, of the tribal peoples who live on that land and are original and current caretakers of that land. And good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Kimberly. Before we move into the talking circle piece, I just would like to pass it off to Liz and allow you a few words to introduce yourself and say hello, and then we'll start to berate you with questions.
Oh, thank you so much. And hello, good morning from whatever time zone you're coming in from. Thank you, Kimberly, for asking me to be here, and Regina for hosting, and Desmond, and in this talking circle. I'm really excited to be here, and just I'm very honored to be here, and I wouldn't be here without the likes of you, without the likes of Kimberly, before me, not that much before me, but before before me. Um, and for the work that you all do. So I'm just very honored to be here, and thank you.
All right, very good.
Thank you so much, and welcome to everyone in the circle. Again, if you joined late, we're doing this in a little more informal way this week, and we invite you all to participate. We would like to hear questions, thoughts, reflections, ideas, concerns, anything as we move forward, things that just come up. So we hope this to be just an open dialogue among us. And I'm going to start since Kimberly and Liz and I have been in conversation before this session today, talking about land as culture. I want to ask, and Kimberly, I'm like in awe that I get to be here and see you in almost in person, close enough, closer than in film, which I have many times. And I just want to start off by saying that it's, to me as a Cherokee person, it's really meaningful, the work that you've done representing my people and Wilma Mankiller, and the amazing, incredible work that she's done. And I have lots of other questions for you, but I want to ask about that, like how to you and Liz, I know you're doing work specifically in this area with ocean, and I've seen this very much alive in your work, Kimberly, not only in movies but also in Spirit Rangers and in animation, and I'm curious to know how you see land as character coming to life in the work that you've done.
Yeah, it's incredibly interesting. And this is the reason why I invited Liz along with me, because it's just in the spirit of our Indigenous way as well, to kind of create this circle of conversation. But, you have a beautiful mission statement, Dr. Murray, regarding Environmental Fridays. And it's about this idea of like, how can we be good stewards of the land if we don't have a relationship? There is already a relationship. There's already an exchange of energy. But when you start moving into that place of relationship, then there's a natural affection and care that comes from that. And then Regina, as we were talking a bit yesterday via email, you took it that one step further, that one step deeper, kind of focusing in, like decreasing the scope and increasing the focus. And that would be the word kinship, which is such a powerful word. And I think that's the next step. And that's kind of where I would love to ground us today, and why I wanted to bring Elizabeth into this as well, is that, we have relationships with maybe the person at Starbucks, right? That gets, or wherever that, we see every day. And that's a nice relationship too. But then there are relationships where we really care for people. And we're caring about Elizabeth. We won't have to get into it too much, but Elizabeth has a big meeting coming up today, and I dreamed about it all night last night. And it's because I love her. It's because I care so much. I think I'm more excited about this meeting than she is probably. But we get to know our surroundings. Anybody that here that gardens, that you're like that, or you have some houseplants. Maybe I just started getting houseplants during the pandemic. I mean, in a lot of them, and learned how to care for them, because previously I hadn't had the most green thumb. But now I have these deep relationships with my plants, and like I got a couple of them that are starting to, and I'm just so happy for them. And there's all those scientific, right, the experiments that say when you speak to the plants, like how you don't speak to one and you do speak to the other, how one thrives. So there's this concept of relationship. And going back to what we do as storytellers, as contemporary storytellers in film and television, when we build characters, and Elizabeth, I want you to speak to this as well, but when we build characters, we start immersing ourselves empathetically into their world. And so what happened for me, I studied history at UCLA, and I'm very grateful for that, because it taught me how to approach I started in acting, and I realized I'm at UCLA. I can take a great acting class in Santa Monica. Like, I need to be studying like epistemology, like how ontology. How do I take all these amazing, experts and learn something about the world? And that's why I chose history. But it's told me how to like take something and really start looking at it holistically. And so when I got my first role, it was in a giant ABC miniseries about the retelling of the Battle of Little Bighorn, based on the book Son of the Morning Star, that was approaching it from the perspective of two women, Custer's wife. And Custer, unbeknownst to a lot of people, had a Cheyenne wife as well.
Hmm.
And my character played Custer's Cheyenne wife's cousin. So this is Kate Bighead was my character. So telling the two stories, from the two sides. Well, immediately, like, I already have Cheyenne friends. We were in Montana. That one of the first things that I did was go down to the Battle of Little Bighorn myself. Rented a car, went down there, went and engaged with the land without even realizing it, right? It just came innately. It came inherently, both for me as an Indigenous thinker and an Indigenous spirit, but also just as an actor and a scholar, right? Like, I have to know the land. I need to see this place where this happened, where they were camped, and then because our location was not on that location, obviously, because it's preserved, but I was able to take the knowledge and the memory of that land and say hello to it, and introduce myself. And it's as simple for me. I sadly don't speak my language fluently. But it's as simple for me, but that land wouldn't maybe know my Salish language anyway. So, it's as simple for me saying, hello, my name is Kimberly. I am here to tell the story that happened on this land. And I just want to say that I honor you, and I honor what happened here, and I want to do my best to help tell this story.
Hmm.
And so it's just that building that relationship with the land. And then that helped me when I went on the day, to tell the story in the most deeply authentic way that I can, which is also why we've been championing, Liz and I both, and so many of our colleagues have been championing that Native people play Native people in film and television, because we bring something a little bit, more. I mean, you can look Native, but playing Native is two different things, so you bring this kind of embodied knowledge of how to approach story.
Mhm.
So Liz, I want to pass it to you. What do you?
Yeah, well, I mean, also, Regina, Kimberly's a dear friend of mine and like big sis, and also I'm always in awe that I'm like, she's my friend. So I get it. But I think, I mean, Kimberly, just to jump on what you're saying, you know, I think what we have the unique kind of opportunity to do as storytellers is, versus maybe scientists, or we have the unique ability to allow people a story and a conduit to feel something, to have relationship to where they are, which is a beautiful thing. And that means that we are that initial, connection, because we need to be able to do that as storytellers and understand it and relate to where we are in order to then bridge to an audience, or even our collaborators, what that means. I think a lot of times, I just got back from doing a play in New York called Manhattan, and it's about basically the history of Manhattan. And we did it in New York City. And I use that as an example of, it's not only the history of the Lenape people and what happened there to the people, but also of the land. And when you kind of put yourself inside of it, and I would walk around New York City thinking, how many layers of concrete, how many layers of progress are we on top of to get to what we now think of as Wall Street, and to be able to have, honestly, people, who work in finance in New York City come to our show, and to let them know why Wall Street is called Wall Street, why Pearl Street is called Pearl Street, because why that Broadway was the Broadway where many native tribes would trade, that the origins of trade actually came from this land, from the tip of Manhattan where the Lenape people would collect shells, and wampum was made. And that's something that audiences, the common, I guess, feedback that we would get is that they will never walk around New York City the same again, because now they have relationship and understand where they are, which to me is beautiful and wonderful, because we are where we are in history, but to understand the relationship, not only of people amongst people, and what people predicated, especially with indigenous peoples, both here and all over the world, but what that also did to the land, because we were the original caretakers of the land. So my hope is, as we relate environment to story, environment and relationship to people in story, that it'll at least give us pause in this rapid world about where we are and how we got here. So hopefully we can be more forward thinking with the history that we have in terms of what we decide next altogether. That's kind of the purpose of story and environment to me.
That is cool.
It's yeah, and I love, as Kim knows, I love being out in nature. I love the quiet, and I'm an extrovert. I love human beings, but then I get out in nature and listen to Creator, and I'm like, maybe I don't love human beings. So no, I'm just kidding. I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking.
But yeah, I think like what both you and Kim are saying is that relationships is at the core of our human existence. You talk about historical relationship, which again, as you just pointed out, in the buzz and hustle of life today, we kind of don't have time for it. But if we were to pause, right, and reflect, we would start to see how we are connected to the past. And then, of course, the relationship to the land and relationship to nature, relationship to the environment. And so one of the things that I believe is true now in science is realizing is that while we were very focused on finding fundamental particles, okay, electrons, neutrons, and so on, what we are finding is that even more important is the fundamental relationships between the particles. And then in a poetic sense, also from Lord Alfred Tennyson, he said, I am a part of all that I have met. So that idea of relationship is there as well.
I love that, because, and Kim and Regina too, I'm curious what you think, but there was a gal, so I spearfish, I free dive a lot. I'm in the ocean pretty much as I possibly can, and I depth dive, and I was in Hawaii, and there's a woman that I spearfish. She's young, and actually I believe what had just finished her degree. Brianne was her name. She's Native Hawaiian, like 5th generation, and she was studying I think environmental sciences. And she actually said to me, we talked quite a bit about it. And again, this is not my background, so I do not know. So it's kind of a question, if just to pose to the group, is she said she had a harder time in academia because for her, she felt science or study of the environment was more in a bubble, where I don't remember where she was going to school, was in a bubble, separate from relationship of humans with environment. So she felt, coming out of school, she and I don't want to misspeak, was how I intook her, but She said she was trying to find a way to bridge who she was as a Native Hawaiian, woman, and what she knew, because she said, well, the way that we always think about it is we are in relationship to and part of environment. So she said, Liz, how can I study environment and separate myself and separate who we are from whatever decisions are made? So it was a struggle that she was genuinely having. And I don't know. I'm curious if that happens, if in the scientific community and the study of environment, is human and relationship removed, or is that something that's in,
So
I don't know.
I think we have biologists on board, chemists on board, and as Regina said, this is a circle, a talking circle. You guys can jump in, ask questions, make comments.
Please do. And if you want to share video too, we welcome your beautiful faces.
All right. That's true. That
I
is,
will add as we wait to hear from people that absolutely resonates with me, Liz. And I think a part of that is that our academic institutions are founded on Western paradigms, that don't recognize relationships to land. It's like, but when you gave that the way you saw Manhattan, right, and all that concrete on top of concrete on top of concrete. Well, that's kind of how the institutions have been built too, and it's just separating us from that relationship, and then not even acknowledging that as a valid or not a recognized relationship. And so I see that happening. I mean, I'm a health researcher, but an Indigenous health researcher. So I work really hard to integrate that, to bring it back and center my work on relationships. And not only, so often it's limited to social relationships, which the Western paradigm would refer to as from human persons to human persons, right? And we all understand there's personhood as Indigenous peoples. There's personhood in non-human persons, right? So the land, the ocean, the rocks, the animals, which we see very much alive in spirit rangers, and I think that is what we're advocating, much like you're doing in your work on film. As researchers, we're advocating to bring that back, to validate that, to center that. And I think so. Even within, like, when I think of like social determinants of health, they're varying. It doesn't include land, but then there's now this emerging Indigenous social determinants of health by Dr. Christina Ore and others who are acknowledging land, kinship, culture, language, all of that as part of it, part of what determines our health and well-being, right? And so I think it's all of our work to be advocating for that and to be reintegrating it, because that's where it all began, right? I mean, this is, like we said in the beginning, like the work in science, the work in the arts, it all started from Indigenous peoples and was understood originally through Indigenous ways of being and knowing and doing, right? So that's our work, and it's exciting to me, and it is a great challenge. So I absolutely resonate. That resonates with me, what your friend in Hawaii said, and I'd love to hear from other scientists in the room, and I will open it up now. If anyone would like to unmute or be unmuted, just let us know, or put in chat too. If you don't want to talk or show your face, we understand that too. We all have those days, or early mornings especially. So go ahead and put in chat any other questions or thoughts or responses to that.
I saw too
what I would like to comment is, from a global health perspective, it cannot be properly taught without recognizing and understanding the contribution of Indigenous peoples. And I think the same applies to all disciplines. Knowledge is, what should I say? It's incomplete when you don't go full circle and get to the root of what was before Western views came into play. And I think it's been recognized from a health perspective. You cannot produce good health professionals unless they understand the roots of the communities they serve. So, which is why I signed on to hear you guys specifically. I'm actually in Tobago, and a lot of what you are saying resonates very deeply with me. So I'm happy to mute myself and hear you all talk some more.
I just appreciate so much, Sylvia, what you were talking about. And I noticed that Eleodora and Sarah are also agreeing. And it makes me think of my mentor at UCLA when I was an undergrad. Is named Hane Gigama, and he's a Kiowa scholar, and he's a theater scholar, and also a playwright. And he had a really powerful way, and we're talking about in the like late 80s when I was at UCLA, already thinking about this because we were coming into the 500th anniversary of Columbus landing, not too far there from Tobago, right up and where the DR is now, the Dominican Republic, and that area. And so we were turning toward that. But he said that with colonization came a breaking of the sacred hoop. And that our job, now we were speaking specifically about storytelling, but our job as contemporary storytellers was to help heal and mend the sacred hoop. And I think it's important not to think of a two-dimensional hoop, but a three-dimensional hoop that extends within just even our physical temporal space and goes into talking about physics, right? It goes into theoretical physics of it's going into every different aspect of being. So mending the sacred hoop is exactly what you were just saying, Sylvia, about connecting with the folks the roots of the people that you're working with and you're serving. The land, who did the land take care of? Who loved the land and who did the land love back? Because then again, if you go into physics, the time-space continuum it's kind of in flux. Isn't yesterday really happening today and then tomorrow? I mean, we can't quite understand that either. So if you looked at everybody in this room, everybody in our talking circle right now, if we could just see 3 generations back, right, we start seeing an exponential growth in who we're represented by. Like Regina's dad, Papa Ron, is in the room, right? So it's just like there's a generation there. But it's like if we saw and we think about not just our grandparents or our great grandparents, but all, great and great and great, and we start going back, and if those people were represented in the room, can you imagine the wisdom? Can you imagine the knowledge that would be in this room? And so I think that it goes back, Desmond, you brought up a powerful word when we kicked this off about connection. Right. And what I see, I think what we all see in the world is a dehumanization, which for me means a separation. Because then now I want to tie that to what you said, Regina, about personhood. When I was a little kid, I used to say, well, trees are people too. Or the rock is a person too. And because it was just like, when somebody would hurt something or tear something up or whatever, I'd be like, hey, they're people too. Like they have feelings. This was me being a little kid, not knowing, but yet I did know. Right. So it's just like having that sense of that connection, of that kinship. And so I do think that building a sense of, and starting it from the land, and then also our own selves, like there's still a hum in our DNA, just like the trees, like the rings in a tree. There's a memory in our DNA that goes back. And so it's kind of connecting with that as well, of just saying like, I honor that Elizabeth and Regina will know this, and any other Indigenous person, that we think in terms of 7 generations, 7 generations behind who were praying for us. And then in turn, we are to pray and to act as if what we're doing, we know what we're doing is affecting 7 generations ahead of time. I have no question. That's a whole nother topic, and I don't want to go off on that topic, but Elizabeth and I and all of our colleagues have been fighting, like we said, so long for representation in our contemporary storytelling. And it's happening. You turn on the TV now, like 5 years ago, you turn on the TV, no natives. Now you turn on the TV, it's like, oh, there's Echo. Oh, there's Elizabeth. Elizabeth is in Echo, the new Marvel show. Oh, there's Spirit Rangers on Netflix. Oh, and just really exciting things happening because of the work, because we put in that work. But I kid you not, I owe it so much to whoever was praying for us back then, right? The 7 generations behind us going, we're going through a hard time now, but we will not give up. We're suffering right now, but our descendants will not. They will thrive one day. And I believe they saw us thriving. I believe they saw Elizabeth going for this big meeting today with this show. Like it's just like all this stuff, or just the work that we're doing in academia. I believe they saw us like coming back into consciousness from the sucker punch that knocked us out from colonization. It's just like, okay, wait, who are we? Where are we? Why are we here? And I love, Sylvia, what you said, because I do believe as Indigenous people, we're here to help join that circle and reconnect that sacred hoop as human beings, so that we can start addressing some of the problems that are the very real world challenges that we're facing in our earth today. And so much of that is about a lack of care for the world that supports us, the environment that supports us.
That is so very powerful. Sylvia put it in their chat as well about the 7 generations vision, not, only going back, but also going forward. And it places responsibility upon us to honor the past and to pass on legacy to the future, which is, yeah, that's a mind-blowing, mind-changing concept there, the 7 generations. Thank you for saying that. If nothing else from this, I will remember the 7 generations. Might even come with a poem on it.
Well, then you're obligated to share that poem with us.
Okay, all right, sounds good.
The whole group, send it back out to everyone here. That could be our closing prayer.
Love that.
Okay, sounds good. So though, one of the things that I'm seeing too is that the idea that nature is sacred is an old idea, is 7 generations idea that now Western culture is just kind of like starting to, talk about. A lot of the things of how 7 generations ago, how Native Americans viewed the world are now starting to come back into the consciousness. That, for example, capitalism separated us from the environment and made us feel like, we are above the environment. But that, at least consciousness is coming back, that we are not above, we are part of. So there is a lot here that understanding the views, philosophy, attitudes of Native Americans would help us now in reimagining our world.
Yeah, I think to relate that, Desmond, to storytelling it's what was it? I'm much more, Kim knows this, I'm much more a tactile learner, right? Like I love to read, but I don't really understand until my body understands things. So that's why I love to dive, because being small in this big fluid body of the ocean, I understand how I am just a speck and a part of the caretaking of this land, that my relationship to my environment is with something so much larger than I am. And I feel like, and don't get me wrong, I love technology, but like technology is makes us feel big. I mean, it does. It's an extension of our brains, and wow, I can like tell the whole world how I feel right now. Not that I should. And and we have the ability to do that, but it's in the book Sapiens, which I loved. I think it was stated that the and again, y'all are scientists, so I'm just spouting what I've read, but that the thing that separated us specifically as Homo sapiens was that our ability to tell stories helped us gather, I think it was like more than 50 or something like that, so that we could actually collectively participate in something together. So to me, I was like, wow, storytelling is our unique ability that's helped us get to 2024. But what stories we tell and who's telling them is so important, because that whatever is broadcast, what is it? History is written by the winners. Whatever's been broadcast, it becomes much more the collective belief and then the collective participation. So who is telling the stories at this moment in time is so incredibly important, especially when it comes to environment, because that's 7 generations of knowledge that we have now, that I honestly don't always know here. It's something I innately understand in my body when I am in environment is important. And I almost sometimes feel, for those tactile learners like me, if there are ways to tell story, but just like I said about New York City, but get people to the places to experience the thing. We're pitching a show about women, female free divers and spearfishers. And it's really unique to me because the original spearfishers were women. The original hunters were women, the Ama. And what is it to have removed the original, the original spearfishers from their ability to do innately what was done? This was in the Philippines and Korea and Japan. And over time, because of capitalism, we've removed indigenous peoples from very expensive real estate, right? Sorry if I get a little too political right now. But what happens? Just stop me. But what happens when we've removed peoples, just speaking of just the ocean, let's say, Hawaii, great example. What happens when we've removed indigenous peoples from their proximity to the place to which we're innately supposed to do something? And that could have been the ripple of what could have been passed on, even as, diversity of culture, like as diversity of different kinds of people happen. We've now removed these innate abilities that could have helped because we've squashed it with this rapid growth or rapid capitalism. And so a lot of it is me witnessing all different types of people, that what happens when we return to the ocean, we return to things that we've been removed from, not only on the women themselves that do it, but actually also the ripple that it has also on the men in their lives. When women are allowed to be free and wild and hunt, that actually what I've seen, and this isn't scientific, it's just what I've observed, is that then the men that surround the women that are coming into their own innate voice, innate distinct voice, because of their interaction with the environment, that the men around them, actually, it allows them to then be more vulnerable, more sensitive, because there isn't this expectation that it's been carried. So it's kind of going back to, well, wait, but the original spearfishers were women. So who were the men also then? So that's environment informing us about ourselves rather than the opposite.
Yeah. So one of the things those are really very good points. One I want to kind of pick up and to try to move the conversation a little bit further is we've repeated the word storytelling. Both you and Kimberly, Regina, talk about storytelling, but it's could be viewed as a metaphor because that's exactly what movies are, right? It's telling a story. And so the question is now, how do our movies, our portrayal of the environment, of Native Americans in the environment, what are your views on that? And it could include, a historical point of view as well as something going into what do we wish for in the future. Trying to connect now directly what we've been talking about, the storytelling, the relationships. How do we now view that in what we have observed in past, present, and hopefully into the future movies?
We're coming into a real, again, what we talked about, that was so beautiful. What you said, Sylvia, you were the ones the ancestors dreamed of. And I think that's so true. And so a lot of that is, so I want to tell just a little anecdotal story about sovereignty. And sovereignty in our storytelling. So I'm from a tribe, the Colville tribe, Okanagan and Wenatchee. It's a confederation of tribes up in Washington State. And one of the first, I believe, the first female novelist, published novelist in the country was from my tribe. Her name was Mourning Dove. And so there was a conference, an academic conference there. So people from all over the world had come to talk about Mourning Dove and the works of Mourning Dove and present their papers and all that stuff. And my colleague, Lori Arnold, who's also from my tribe, she teaches at Gonzaga. There are all these non-native folks that were the experts on Mourning Dove and had done all the research. And so they were doing their research in our longhouse about our relative and their stories. And they were like, well, this is what, and that's what. And I saw, and Lori, in the most beautiful and diplomatic and kind way, said, we want to thank you for all of your decades of research and all of your time, and we'll take it from here. We'll take it from here. Thank you. And it was just so, and they were like, blah, blah, blah. It's not like you're out of the circle. It's like, yes, be in the circle, but we will steward this circle. We'll shepherd the circle from here.
That's right.
Because Mourning Dove would tell us stuff that she would never tell you,
Yeah.
and then we know how to filter that into the world. And so that's kind of what's happening is that within, and I want to tie this to Elizabeth because the last 2 nights, I spent watching Marvel's Echo. And Elizabeth is one of the ancestors, not to be a spoiler, but is one of the ancestors in Echo. And I think that was a really beautiful way. You would have never gotten Echo, a Marvel show. You wouldn't have seen what you will see if you get to watch it, if you have Hulu or Disney Plus. And I think it's is it on FX2 as well, Elizabeth, on TV? I mean, I'm sure people can find, yeah.
Unmuted, Elizabeth.
But there is such again, I don't believe this is a spoiler. It's kind of gonna come up quite quickly. But because the entire piece was executive produced, not just directed, not just written by, but executive produced. This means like, the umbrella is under a powerful storyteller named Sydney Freeland. And Sydney is Indigenous and has been directing for a long time. Is very, her craft is on point. So it's this combination of image and substance, right? She is Indigenous, but is also a filmmaker and paid her dues. Elizabeth, you were in one of Sydney's first films, right? Drunktown's Finest.
Yeah, that was Drunktown's Finest. And then we did we did a couple things together.
Right. So it's like we're again building those relationships
Mhm.
And so you have this world, like I'm watching Echo and like, there's my friend Tantu. There's my friend Elizabeth. There's my little friend Jula Harjo from Idabel. There's my friend Natalie's like friend Ryan Sixkiller playing stickball. You know, there's just like, I know all the people on that show. They're all coming together to make this show. It's based like on my land where not my land, but where I grew up in southeastern Oklahoma in Choctaw country. But what was so cool was that it shows the origin story of the Choctaw people. And we all come from the land, right? It's all associated, like our names, let's say Wenatchee or Regina, I don't even, to be honest, I don't even know what the word Cherokee means, but most of our names mean the people from something. Not like Americans or Dutch or whatever. It's like, no, the people that live by, that's how we see ourselves as separate. The human beings who live by the lake, the human beings that live in the mountains, the human beings, you know. So the Choctaw are people from this particular mound. Their creation story comes from the Alabama area. And I believe it's Alabama and one of the mounds, like that whole area. But you see that in that story. And I think it's so interesting because Oklahoma is Oklahoma, which is a Choctaw word. But it's interesting because we're even in our English word, we're human beings, and which comes from huma. We're earth. Huma, I guess it would be what,
Earth.
Latin or something,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
is the earth. We're beings from the earth. So it's so interesting how, see, the connections are already there. We
Yeah.
just have to make them. So I think that's the difference, Desmond, is that now you're seeing Indigenous people telling Indigenous stories. And I think that the global audience is starting to like a story now told about Native people that isn't from within our culture. I started, there's the taste test. They're like, I
Yeah.
don't know, that doesn't taste right. That doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
Because now we've had reservation dogs, we have Echo, we have, you know, Spirit Rangers, we have all these different TV shows, and we're hearing the stories from the people themselves. And
Yeah.
that's changing everything, I think.
And that's going into the future, from top to
That's going into the
bottom,
future.
from executive producer all the way to the extras or whatever.
Oh yeah, craft service. I mean, you go on Elizabeth, I'm sure on Echo you saw that as well, but for sure on Reservation Dogs, it was I mean, it was, I've never walked on a set, and it's mostly Indigenous people on the set,
Yeah.
top to bottom.
And
And
it was
it's just
not like that
mm-mm,
five,
5 years ago even.
5, 6, 7. Yeah.
But we've been fighting for it. It's been a
So,
battle. It's been a
so,
battle.
so there has to be some sort of like training, education, where all of these Native American stories coming from, and storytellers and executives. Is there like an industry that's producing them now? I'm assuming you are part of it at UCR, at UC Riverside. Do you
There,
want to
I
reveal
think
the
Elizabeth,
secret to us?
no, I think it's true for everybody in this circle there. And Desmond, you said something really powerful earlier about somebody being uncurious.
Uh-huh.
And I think that the opposite of that is true for probably everybody in this circle. I said there's a deep embodied curiosity to do something.
That's
And
true.
looking back, um I I didn't I was having a hard time, and Elizabeth, I don't know if you feel this way. I was having a hard time with the nomenclature actor slash writer slash producer slash director. I do all of those things within our business,
Mhm.
within our industry. But I felt very uncomfortable. I even feel a little bit uncomfortable saying I'm an actor. I am an actor. I've studied the craft. I still study the craft and I teach the craft. But I have friends who are actors, and I look at them and I'm like, I am not them. Like they're a different breed. They're my cousins, but you know what I mean? But I went back to my uncle who lives on a reservation, who's just this font of wisdom. And I was asking him about that. And he said, well, and they'll never, a great elder will never just answer they'll like usually tell you a story to answer your question. And then you have to figure it out over the years, you know,
Okay.
what that means. And within that, he told me, he goes, and I was like, Uncle, blah, blah, blah. And I was telling him about, and how we were fighting, for representation and all this kind of, and is it important? Never using the word story, never using the word storyteller. And he told me about the storytellers in our tribe and how the storytellers in our tribe they were basically like a journalist, a documentarian, a comedy writer, a comedian, I mean, just an academician. They were all the things, a researcher, all put into one person. And then they would hit the road. They would leave their families. They would leave their tribes. They would leave security, which Elizabeth and I know you have to leave security to go into this business. Because there's no, you can't make a living really off of what we do. And it's, it's a calling. But the curiosity is what drives you. But the storytellers were so revered amongst our tribes, and they would travel up and down. There were no borders, right? They would travel up and down all the way into Central America and sometimes into northern South America, all the way up to the tip of Alaska. It was all of our territory. And they would share these stories. And in our tribe, we were battling with a local tribe, Yakima, and they would stop the war and and they would the storytellers are coming through, and they would stop, and the storytellers would come through, and everybody knew to honor the storytellers, right? Because they were taking this communication back and forth. And so I think that is happening today. And Regina, this goes back to Wilma Mankiller. She understood that very, very well. And there's a story that she was working with Dan Inouye, the Hawaiian senator, the very powerful legislator, Dan Inouye from Hawaii. And it was Dan who said to her, and of course she was listening, right, to her elder. And he was telling her how he said, in all the fights you're fighting, fight for representation in film and television and then in a contemporary media, because story changes perception and perception changes policy.
Yep.
It was like making the connection like that, again, that full circle.
Full circle. Wow, that's pretty cool. Powerful. So again, we want to, Sylvia has been very active with comments and questions and stuff. We want others as well. I might start calling names.
Anyone want to share a question?
Princess.
Thought,
friend.
what resonates with you, what may not?
Yes. Mary Ellis, Len.
You guys actually dropped some pearls that I think all people who are struggling for representation can take a lesson from, and that is about, the storytelling being a way to open up to policy change, because the storyteller is not intimidating, and everyone would listen. And if perception is changed by the actor, by the visual, it's so much easier to get policy to follow the correct path. So I think this is an area where the arts can really inform a lot of, I don't want to say scientific approaches, but a lot of policy things that we would like to see regarding the environment. It would really be so much easier, with the story or the visual, the acting.
Yeah, and in preparation for, this conversation, I also read a few things. I'm not knowledgeable by any means, that storytelling is just one of the forms in which, for Native Americans, you can see the relationship to the land. It comes out in their music, it comes out in poetry, it comes out in sculpture, I mean, whatever, dress, that connection to the land, connection to nature, is quite self-evident in all of Native American. And so the idea of separation is between, you know, Native American people, individuals, and the land and environment is like foreign. It's, yeah, it's non-existent, really. That separation.
And it's to kind of what Kim was saying too, you know, when you said, yeah, when I say I'm an actor, or like, it doesn't quite feel right. It's one of the tools in my Swiss Army knife of humanity.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
really, I think of it as when I had a director that I worked with once say this, is like, we have the unique job to allow people to feel something. And once you've felt something, it means you're in relationship to it, and you don't forget that. Someone can, you know, sit there. It's Mary Catherine Nagel wrote the play. That's why and I just got back from it, but so on my mind. But she's a amazing, brilliant playwright and lawyer. And she started writing plays because suddenly you have a story. There's people that you care about on stage. You know, you think of a movie about any topic, Sylvia, to your point, that is about something that you didn't know about, but because you see the effect of what happens to the people in it, suddenly, if you never knew, you care. And when you feel you care, and when you care, things change. You can't unknow something. So I'm not like, for me, I'm never mad or at myself if I'm like, gosh, I didn't know that. But once I know, or when someone else knows, you can never unknow. And once you feel, and I think maybe, and Desmond, I'm rambling here, but maybe, you know, or Regina in the sciences is I love science. I love sci-fis.
Okay.
I want more like kind of like indigenous sci-fis.
Okay.
That'd be dope. You know,
It
returning.
would.
Yeah, just putting that out there, scientists.
That's
Uh,
right.
but you know, maybe that's the I think Regina, might have written it. There's a where was it? I saw you write it. Research tells a story
Research
too.
is also a story. Yeah, it is. It definitely is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how do we
Out to them.
all use our Swiss Army knife tools and help each other communicate these stories so that people can feel, and then maybe policy changes or ways in which we approach some of the sciences becomes less completely westernized and more, you know, veered towards also you know, an indigenous way in. So there's a collaboration. Maybe that's what it is. There's more collaboration, I wish, in our future amongst different disciplines.
Right. So one of the things that also is relevant here is that over time, the academics is becoming more and more interdisciplinary. And not just within, for example, STEM, you know, science, technology, but across different areas that seem, you know, very different from each other, like social sciences and physical sciences and stuff. So that's a trend also that's happening. One of the other trends that I'm hoping would happen is not only interdisciplinary, but also interlevel collaboration, meaning collaboration across the academic spectrum, like universities connecting with high schools and so on. That's another area I think, a niche that would involve a lot of, could involve a lot of rich collaborations and developing of relationships, and could address some of the issues, for example, in STEM, of underrepresentation, of I do not like the word minorities, and I could talk about that. Yeah, I would prefer to use the words historically underrepresented groups. And so those sort of relationships could also be engaged with if we were to do not just interdisciplinary, but also interlevel, could help with that sort of problem as well.
Yeah,
I see Brenda. I think, Brenda, do you want to say anything? I saw you put some stuff in the chat as well.
And Steve as well. Steve's brought
Yeah.
up protocol, which we don't have time because I know we got to wrap up, but that's a whole nother thing we need to share is protocol. Like that's protocol is such a gift.
Yes. Yeah.
Brenda or Steve, did you want to share what you wrote in chat, or anyone want to bring to voice? I'll share. So Brenda said, those who, oh, Steve, cool, you're coming on. I will be quiet. Hi, Steve.
So good morning, everybody.
Morning.
My name's Steve Tamayo. I'm coming in from Omaha, Nebraska, but I'm a member of Sichongo Lakota from Rosewood, South Dakota. And so I've had the opportunity over the last few decades to just sit down and have some nice hot soup and coffee with our grandmas and grandpas, because they have been anxiously awaiting to tell our stories. And so because of today's technology, there's a lot of our children and our youth, this generation, that, they don't value that time. And so we have to think of other outlets. And so to see, our indigenous relatives on sitcoms and on the big screen, to have Lily win that award the other night was just amazing, to acknowledge our little res dogs, our little babies, It was truly amazing to see that, because I have been anxiously awaiting that. And so I myself, I'm a storyteller, I'm an orator of our own creation stories. And so I was anxiously awaiting this Zoom, just because I've seen Kimberly for years on the big screen, and I've heard of you, and so it's just amazing to be on here and just to share my voice with each and every one of you. And so my plan today is to watch Echo, so I'm looking forward to that as well. But thank you, Regina. I consider her my toja, one of my nieces, because she understands the importance of the absent narrative, which is our indigenous voice today. And so one thing that we have to abide by is once again specific responsibilities and protocol that exist with our teachings. And so most people don't understand the restrictions that are placed upon us when we tell our stories of what stories are we able to gift at that time of the season. And so what nation and what are the virtues and values and ways of being, and this is the complexity of our existence and within our own stories. So I'm really happy to just share these few words with each and every one of you, and hopefully it can branch out, because these are discussions that need to take place for us to, share and collectively collaborate with as many different organizations as individuals, as understanding our specific, what we call sichon. Your sichon in the Lakota language is your gift, your talent. It explains why people can sing and when they can't sing, why people love science and math, and the people who are truly gifted with their hands, they're not best, because of our crafters. And so understanding that, I always incorporate the responsibilities and protocol, gender-based, seasonally based. And so I just wanted to share those few words with you. So thank you very much.
So Steve, you are officially invited to be one of our guest speakers in the future.
I would love.
Yes,
Serious.
I will be reaching out to you and we'll make arrangements for that.
Cool. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, thank you.
And
What
please
does
invite us
he-
as well.
Yes,
Here.
that's right.
Okay, you want it up?
Yeah, so we didn't also get to talk much about your ocean story too, Liz. So that needs a callback. Yep, you're gonna be a guest speaker. Tell us about the ocean, your ocean adventures and stuff.
I could talk about the ocean endlessly, but you
Yes.
could also come to California. We can just
Okay.
do it on site and we'll all go out and we
All right, that
a
sounds
live
good.
a live Zoom from a boat somewhere. I love this idea.
Yeah,
I do too. I'm coming home.
Let's
And-
go.
and
Yeah.
Sylvia would host us in Tobago when we get to the islands.
Yes.
Yes. So what do you think, Regina? Maybe we should start wrapping up.
Yeah, I think, as we wrap up, I think the big question now is, how do we, with each and every one of us in this Zoom, in this room together, what are our gifts, and I think this is the call, right? We're talking about what a difference we can make as storytellers and as advocates for our people and for the land and our relationship among us. So I guess now my challenge is, Desmond, you said you would write a prayer. So now I'm going to just say, I would challenge all of us. What is our prayer for the 7 generations, that come after us? And I have one of those right here with me. Guys, say hi.
Oh.
So he joined a little bit ago, but I mean, thinking about our future generations, and the stories that we share with them and what is told and the gifts that we have, and in what ways will we tell our story, and what story do we have to tell, to be those people that that future generations are thanking as we are today for our ancestors, right? So
Right.
what is our prayer? And if anyone wants to share what your prayer is, or your hope or your wish, for healing our environment and our relationship with our environment through stories. And I really think it comes back to what Kimberly and Liz were talking about, of not just us feeling it, but bringing out that empathy and in others, that empathetic sense of our place in this world. So that's that. I think I will wrap up with that. If anyone wants to share even just one word, either in chat or through your voice on Zoom today, what is that prayer? And I'll start with my one word. And I'll just say healing.
Okay.
And I'll pass the virtual imaginary talking stick to you, Desmond.
So if I were to use one word, I would say relationship would be one word. But if I were to use another word to it's like curiosity would be another word. And so I pass it on to Liz.
So many words came through my mind.
I know.
Caretaking is the
Care-
word that
Yeah.
comes to mind.
Okay, caretaking. And you pass it on to
Pass it on to Kim.
Kim.
Kinship.
Kinship. Very nice. Very nice. That's a really great place and word to end our very first Environmental Fridays for this year, 2024. And we want to thank everyone that participated in our talking circle. I have learned a lot. And I hope everyone else has learned a lot as well. And more than learning a lot, let's try to find ways, creative ways to be active in forming relationships in terms of the environment in terms of different peoples, different cultures, different understandings. That's something I really hope we get out of this. Not just awareness, but also engagement, action. So thank you, and hope to see at least some of you if you have the time. I know some of you is really early. But if you have the time, join us again next week, Friday. Next week, Friday, we'll be hearing from Seth about the decline in honeybee populations. And I'm thinking a lot of us have come across the phenomena of fake honey at the stores. It could be related to decline in honeybees. Yeah, people are making fake honey. Yep. So that might come up in next week's presentation. All right. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thanks again to everyone.
Wado.
All
Thank you,
right.
Dr. Murray.
And I'll be sending up prayers, Liz, for your meeting today.
Thank you to all the speakers who were
Everybody-
wonderful.
Everybody
Thank
be praying for
you.
Liz today and her big meeting.
Yes,
Steve, we can talk to you later too.
yes. All
Steve,
right.
thanks for being with us too. I'm so glad you're able to join. That's awesome.
Yes.
It was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll speak soon. Take care, everybody.
For sure. I'll see you soon. I'm coming out in 2
Alright.
weeks.
Yes, I know. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Right. Bye-bye. Well, I'll be in touch. I'll be in
Yes.
touch. Yes.
Sounds good. We're waiting for your prayer, your poem.
Okay.
I'll try to work on one too. Okay.
All right.
Hold myself accountable too. I'm
Okay.
responsible
Sounds
too.
good. Sounds
Okay.
good.
All right. Take care,
All right.
everyone.
Take care, everyone. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Wado.
All right.